Have you ever looked at a leader and just wondered, why did they pick that person? Someone who seems loyal, sure, but maybe not the most talented person for the job. Well, it's a question that gets right to the heart of how power really works. And today, we're going to unpack a pretty counterintuitive truth, that when the stakes are high, trust can be worth so much more than pure skill.
So this was the kind of thing people were saying about the late Nigerian president Muhammadu Buhari right after he got into office. The feeling on the street was that he was just surrounding himself with his buddies, his trusted crew, and not necessarily picking the best and brightest from across the country.
But hold on a second. That question right there, it really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? It kind of flips the script. Because while we all say we want a pure meritocracy, leaders who are in the hot seat, well, they're playing an entirely different game with a whole different set of rules.
And look, this isn't just about one president in one country. This is something every single leader deals with. Whether you're running a tech startup or a nation, you have to decide who gets a seat at the table. Who do you trust when everything's on the line?
It all boils down to this core dilemma. On one hand, you've got competence. That's about skills, performance, stuff you can learn. But on the other hand, you've got trust. And that's all about character, about loyalty. And here's the real kicker. You can teach someone to be better at their job, but you just can't teach them to have character.
So that sets up this huge clash, right? Competence versus trust. And in the world of power, leaders are constantly having to weigh these two against each other. And, as we're about to see, the right choice is not nearly as simple as you might think.
Okay, so here's the big, controversial idea. When the pressure is immense, when your legacy, your security, the entire mission is at stake, just being good at your job isn't enough. It's not even the first thing leaders are looking for. There's something else, something way more fundamental. To really get our heads around this, let's look at one of the most elite organizations on the entire planet. I mean, these guys have absolutely mastered building teams for situations where failure is not an option. And how they pick their people is, well, it's fascinating.
Check this out. This is the Navy SEALs selection matrix, and it reveals something absolutely stunning. Take a look at the person with high competence but low trust. You'd think, hey, this person's a rock star, we need them. But the SEALs, they see that person as a toxic liability. In fact, they would rather have someone with average skills and high trust than a superstar they can't count on.
And this quote, which comes from inside the SEALs, just hits you like a ton of bricks. It shows you how deep this idea goes. Trust isn't just a one-off thing. It has to be total. It's not just will you have my back in a fight. It's about complete and total integrity in everything.
So why is that high-skill, low-trust person so dangerous? It's because their competence becomes a weapon that could be turned against you. A skilled person you can't trust isn't just a weak link. They're an active threat. They're a rebel just waiting for their moment. And all of this leads to what we could call a fundamental rule of power. Once somebody gets to the top, it's almost impossible to form real, genuine relationships based on trust. The power itself changes the dynamic. It taints everything. The real alliances, the ones that matter, they were all forged long before, in the dark.
So what does that even mean, building in the dark? Well, it's that time before someone has power. It's when you're not trying to get anything from them. It's the period where your character gets tested and real loyalty is built, not for some future payoff, but through shared struggles and proven integrity.
So you want to know the playbook for getting real access to power? Here it is. Step 1. You build those relationships before power is even in the picture. Step 2. You create a rock-solid track record that shows what your character is made of. And only then, when that person finally rises to power, are you seen as someone who can truly be trusted. Okay, so we've made a really strong case for why trust is so critical. But this is where things can go horribly wrong. If a leader goes all in on loyalty and ignores everything else, are they building a secure fortress, or are they just digging their own grave? Because here's the brutal reality of it all. Loyalty, on its own, doesn't produce results. A leader can feel perfectly safe surrounded by all their loyal friends. But if those friends can't actually do the job, the whole thing is going to crumble. It's a slow death by missed deadlines, bad decisions, and losing the faith of the people you lead. Loyalty just can't fix incompetence. This brings us to the only solution that actually works in the long run. It's not about choosing trust or competence. The real goal is to create a kind of power symbiosis where both of these qualities work together, making each other stronger. This is the Holy Grail, the person every leader is desperately searching for. Someone who is incredibly loyal and incredibly good at what they do. They don't just get results, they protect the leader and the mission's integrity.
Now, people like this are super rare, but the best leaders know that finding them, or even better, cultivating them, is their most important job.
So, after going through this whole puzzle, we land on a conclusion that's actually pretty simple but really powerful. The choice was never really about loyalty versus competence. The true genius of leadership is knowing how to build a team that has both.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. As you go about your own life, your own career, think about this framework. In your world right now, what's the more valuable currency? Is it what you can do, or is it who you can trust? The answer to that, well, it might just change everything.